My name is Jay Horton. This is my Unit 10.1 presentation. The first sport we'll be analysing will be the Tour de France. So currently the Tour de France is the largest sporting event that's held annually. This means that it's the largest event that's held every year consistently. There are over 188 countries that are included in the Tour de France. These will be separated into teams. So for example, England will have Team Sky. A worldwide television audience of about 3.5 billion people watch the Tour de France, and on average 2 million people are there to watch in person over the 2-day period. The Tour de France currently has no bidding process. The number of teams usually vary between 20 and 22 riders, with about 9 riders each. So about 20 to 22 teams with 9 riders in each team, as a rough average. The Tour de France is fairly simple, with the main objective simply to get to the finish line. It's usually held in 2 stages, so you have day 1, then you'll have day 2. For the fans to watch the actual Tour de France, it's actually free. They just have to turn up and be there to watch them ride past. The objectives for the actual production team of it is to provide entertainment for the crowds while hosting the event, to promote the city. Goals are too hot. The goals are to host smoothly and run the event without any troubles, so they want it to work quite simply, quite well. There are many deadlines actually. For example, making sure there is enough water, the track's fenced off, and that there are enough toilets for the riders and for the people watching. And they want to have enough bays for the competitors pre and post race. So pre meaning before and post meaning after. Yeah, this event has to be organised correctly, because if it gets out of hand, then obviously you'll have people running onto the circuit, or the cyclists going the wrong way in an extreme example. Or for example, if you're going over a hill, the rider, or if it's windy enough, the rider could be pushed off the side. That being an extreme kind of consequence of weather and not preparing enough. The start time of the race is going to be timing and going from their times. The physical and financial resources that are actually required there will be the fencing for the track, water supply for the bikers, because they shouldn't be getting dehydrated on a long kind of event like this. We'll need toilets, places to eat. We need obviously a start and a finish line, and you'll need security guards or stewards to control the crowds, and a medical kind of centre, medical hut as you will, for the riders, or if anyone in the crowd has a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, they will need to be prepared for all circumstances really. Yeah, so official partners for the contest or the event was Skoda, Mavic, Dimension Data. Medic partners will be RMC. And during the race there will be lots of closures, resulting in heavy amounts of traffic all around the city, all around the countryside. So there's no real way that the race could be cancelled, apart from the spectators on the track, or severe amounts of rainfall that may make the race unsafe and dangerous for the bikers and the people around watching. Any ethical issues? There's not really many. I mean, we'll have to have a fair start of all participants, making sure it's equal for both boys and girls. There needs to be no racism or no sexism. Other than that, there's not really any ethical issues involved in the race. The Tour de France promotes the country and will bring lots of money towards France, because all the people that will be coming to the country to watch and be watching it via TV. Sponsors will be important because they'll provide things like water, food and other resources to the event. This can make things run more smoothly by worrying about the smaller things such as maybe a bit of rain or a minor injury. They'll use data like how much money was made, how many numbers or people have watched it, whether it was on TV or if it went down to watch. Also the number of casualties they're trying to improve on next year, because obviously there will be some sort of casualties throughout the event if it's a participant or if it's a spectator. It could vary between a crash or a sudden death. It could vary between anything. So yeah, that was for the Tour de France. Second sport will be the next sporting event I'll be analysing will be Wimbledon tennis. So Andy Murray, he was watched by roughly 17.3 million people across the country, around the world, and the total attendance for the event over the 14 days was 493,928 exactly. So that's quite a lot of people to watch tennis over a 14-day period. The aims are to provide a competitive tournament that attracts big amounts of people and can bring a lot of money towards the capital. This is an attempt to promote the country, make everything run smoother and everything a lot better. The goals and targets are to provide a safe and enjoyable time for the large crowds and have the competition run as smoothly as possibly. The deadlines that could be making sure pitches are ready and up to a high standard, because obviously you won't want any muddy patches. The tickets will have to be delivered and sold correctly. This is to make sure that no one who gets in, they shouldn't get in, or they shouldn't have a real ticket, they won't be allowed in. They need to have good medical huts and supplies around, because it's usually very hot at Wimbledon over them 14 days. So they'll need to be prepared for someone suffers from heat stroke or anything. They need to be prepared for it basically, and they need to provide maps so that people can get around to the different courts, because they might want to go from say court 1 all the way to court 7 for example. So I need to know how to get there. Wimbledon keeps a basic structure in order of setting up the event, keeping everything simple and easy but to a high standard at the same time, so they can keep on top of the pitch to make sure the players' needs are met, so that they've got decent conditions to work in. It will cost a lot of money to put the event up, because you have to pay for the staff that help run the event, because if without them then it will be too much work to do for only a few people. They'll need the umpires, they need them to be at a good standard, so they'll have to spend a good amount of money on them. So they won't be cheap for the event, so they'll have to be based around all courts. Neither does the equipment, so I'll have to obviously have all the equipment, so you have all the nets, you have all the lines, and all the stands, everything based around the court and inside the court, they'll have to provide. There'll be lots of medics around the area. This can help the players and the crowd members, all the spectators watching, in case anything happens. There'll be lots of security. This is to prevent people running onto the court or injuring the spectators or anything that could be involved in someone's well-being. They'll need to be prepared and prevent that. For example, someone running onto the court to meet their idol, for example, and ending up them getting injured and not being able to play for the rest of the tournament. The sponsors, Slazenger usually provide the balls, Robinsons provide soft drinks, and Ralph Lauren provide the uniform, the kits for all the players. Sometimes if it rains temporarily, they have to put the game on pause, so sometimes they'll just stop the game until the weather's passed, then they'll just continue with the game. Or if it's in an extreme circumstance, sometimes really bad weather can cause the game to be abandoned completely, so this means they'll completely stop the game and they'll play a rematch another day when the weather's improved a bit. Other things like poorly behaved player like bad behaviour from a player could cause the game to be cancelled, and the other player wins, so the other person will be disqualified, and that will count as a loss to them. Ethical issues in Wimbledon, they have to ensure that every player gets a fair chance, so everything will have to be fair, so there will be no sexism, no racism. They have to make sure everyone's hydrated and everyone's fulfilled to their required needs, so they don't collapse halfway through a game. Wimbledon promotes the city and brings a lot of money and people to the capital. Brings people together, and it's usually a great day out for everyone who's involved, all the players and all the spectators. Sponsors will usually provide things like the balls and the drinks, which I mentioned just earlier. They will use the data with how much money and how much everything is worth, how much is brought together, how many people have turned up, and that will usually be judged on how well their performance and how good the event was based over the 14-day period.